All right, good morning, everyone. It's 11:30, um, May 15th, 2025. It looks like we've got enough people here to start the meeting, so I will go ahead and go through our preamble and then hand it over to um, our chairwoman. So again, as I mentioned, it's May 15th, 2025, meeting of the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee. To go over the virtual meeting regulations and procedures. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the start of any presentation. The recused committee member will then leave the meeting for the duration of the case discussion. The chair will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call of the committee. The administrator will introduce the first project. The meeting will then be turned over to the applicant to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the committee. Once the presentation is concluded, the administrator will provide background information and read any received public comment when applicable. The committee will then begin deliberations and project review. If you'd like to speak, please use the raised hand feature. After deliberations and review concludes, the committee will render its recommendation and/or motion. The applicant may leave the meeting after their project review is complete. All projects will follow the same format until all projects are heard by the committee. Once the projects are heard, the chair will call for any committee/administrator reports, and after all reports have been heard, the chair will adjourn the meeting. Regarding community comments, any and all community members may provide their written comments, thoughts, or questions regarding projects presented to the committee. Community members may also telephone their comments or questions to the committee administrator. All comments, thoughts, or questions must be submitted to the committee administrator no later than 48 hours prior to the start of the meeting. Public comment received after the deadline will not be heard by the committee. Public comment will be collected by Landmark staff and sent to the committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting, and then Landmark staff will summarize the received comments during the meeting. The applicant of the project is under no obligation to answer any community questions. Community members are invited to attend the Design Review Advisory Committee meetings, but there will be no open public comment period. Regarding the design review guidelines, all projects are being reviewed using the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and are being considered for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. All projects are considered on a case-by-case basis. Presentations were received and distributed to committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting. Changes to the presentation after the confirmation of receipt by Landmark staff are not shown today. The Historic Ohio City Design Review Committee makes recommendations to the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. These recommendations are not final actions. Depending on the scope of the project, submissions may be approved administratively or will need to be reviewed by the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Projects will be scheduled at the next available commission meeting after an action is taken. We've got the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation up on the screen. If there are any questions about them or their applicability, I'm happy to go back to this slide if that's necessary. So with that, Madam Chair, I will hand it over to you for we call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Dan. Calling today, May 15th, Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee meeting to order. Can you please call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Flaherty?
Here.
Mr. Frandorf? Ms. Land?
Here.
Mr. Miller? Mr. Persons?
Here.
Oh, welcome back. Mr. Talley? Mr. Trevisano?
Here.
And Ms. Marinucci?
Here.
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. So I guess without further ado, we can move on to our first case, which is case HOC 25-13 at 1771 West 31st Place. This was tabled at our March 1st meeting, so I believe we've got Tom, the homeowner, and maybe Cindy Amato, his contractor here, to walk us through their revised proposal. So we'll hand it over to them. Just let me know when you want me to advance through slides. Maybe they're not our call-in user. Is the call-in user, they identify themselves? Is that one of our applicants or is that someone else? All right. Well, I guess we can move on and maybe come back to that project later in the meeting if they are maybe having trouble getting online. So I think we should move on to our second case, which is HOC 25-20, 1468 West 25th Street. Proposal for renovation and construction. I think we've got a few people here from VOCON. So Denver, whoever wants to kick us off, just let me know when you'd like me to advance through the slides.
Okay, I'll make a brief introduction. This is Denver Brooker, principal at VOCON. We're representing TurnDev, the developer of this project. With me today, I have Brian Daly, who will be taking you through the deck, and I think Erica Hillel from our office may also be on the call. We have a number of representatives from TurnDev, the development team here as well. Just as a way of introduction, this project has been in front of this property.
You seem to have gone muted.
I'm sorry. I thought you might.
Sorry, I'll back up. Did you catch?
Caught most of the intro, but then yeah, it's just like the last maybe 10 seconds didn't seem to be muted.
Okay, so just as a way of introduction, this 1468 West 25th has been a property that's been in front of you several times before, various iterations. This is a completely new development proposal and not associated with any previous proposal for this property. And as you'll see, it involves only the parcel associated with 1468 West 25th. Previous iterations that involved multiple parcels in this area. Our project is pursuing historic tax credits, and we are in the middle of the Part 2 review process and have been through 2 rounds of review with them. So everything you see here today is representative of discussions and making sure that this project can obtain historic tax credits. So with that, I will turn it over to Brian, who can take you through the deck, and we'll answer questions as we go along or at the end.
Hi, everybody. You can go to the next slide, please. I think we're all familiar with the site here. As Denver mentioned, it's been in front of the committee before between West 25th Street and West 26th Street. You can go to the next. Historic photo of the existing building. Go to the next slide. So these are contextual photos of the existing conditions as they currently are. On the upper left here of note, with the existing conditions, the previous storefront condition is going to be brought back, and the existing mural the developer intends to keep. In the center photo here, note that there's the existing parking that we're going to be retaining, renovating, and screening. The top right photo is of the existing rear of the existing building. It is the 3-story building in the upper right there. The 1-story addition at the rear will be removed. Bottom photo is of West 25th, existing conditions a little north of the building, and the bottom right photo is along Church Avenue. Next slide. More existing condition photos. Of note here are the upper 2 left photos. Note on the second photo in there is the existing tree lawn we're going to be extending that tree lawn along a portion of where the black fence is shown in the upper left photo there. And those will be, that'll be more clear when we get to the site plans. Next slide. Here, just some existing, not immediate context, but within the neighborhood historic storefronts that we referenced for the storefront that we introduced, which will be shown in the elevations and renderings. Next slide. So we're in a landmark district, so showing the Detroit Historic District that we're within, which is within the Ohio City Local Landmark District. Our site zoning is local retail business, and the existing historic building has a PRO street frontage. Next slide. The site itself, we're going to be maintaining the existing 3-story building, retaining a portion of the parking to the north of that existing building and removing the addition along West 26th, the 1-story addition. Next slide. So we'll cover some of the site aspects here. This is the proposed ground level plan. Along West 25th Street, there is a landscape strip that we're going to introduce in order to screen the proposed parking. The existing apron that is there will be replaced with a sidewalk, concrete sidewalk. We'll also have some movable planters along West 25th Street in front of the storefront and the landscape strip. Along West 26th Street, we're going to retain the existing apron for site access, introducing a swing gate for security and extending the tree lawn along the existing tree lawn along West 26th Street in front of the townhomes.
Then maybe just as a way to make sure you're clear in terms of what the program is for this project, what you see there in red with a couple of gray boxes to it, that is the historic building. The red box, the historic building, the 1-story addition that Brian pointed out, removed, garage is added to it, and then 3 new townhomes on West 26th Street. So at the end of this project, there'll be 2 residences on the 2nd and 3rd floor of the historic building, a commercial tenant on the 1st, and 3 new fee simple for sale townhomes on 26th. That's the development program.
Yep, and then so that kind of covers the streetscape that we're introducing and the entirety of the program. Covering the rest of the site plan here, note that there will be the two-car garages that'll serve the apartments on the upper floors of the existing building and an attached 2-car garage for each of the townhomes. Next slide, please. So the next couple slides just show the upper floors of the townhomes and the existing building. So here we see the 2nd floor of the townhomes and what we're proposing as apartment A with a rooftop patio on the garage additions. Next slide. 3rd floor conditions similar to the 2nd. You can go to the next slide, please. Then we're proposing rooftop patio on the existing building and rooftop patios on the townhomes. Next slide. This is just a little extra context, the lower level plan of the existing building. You can go to the next slide. Here are some 2D elevations that indicate the heights of the building. I just wanted to make note that the townhomes are respecting the height of the existing building, which is 41 feet. The townhomes primary massing is 36 feet. Next slide. More 2D elevations for context. You can go to the next slide. So specific plantings for the landscaping of the site. As noted, there's the landscape strip that'll be along West 25th Street to screen the proposed parking and the movable planters that'll be in front of that landscape strip and portions of the proposed storefront. And then along West 26th Street, we'll have some newly planted trees along the extended tree lawn and landscaping next to the stoops of the townhomes. Next slide. Here you can see a rendering of the proposed existing storefront. Here we'll be maintaining the existing windows or replacing the existing windows with historic profiles to match. And then along the north side of the building, we're introducing new window openings that'll also match the double hung historic profiles. The storefront, the fenestration here, there are existing columns that we will be wrapping, which is the larger mullions in the center of each of those storefronts. And the storefront will be aluminum storefront with wainscoting of fiber cement paneling. Next slide. A rendering of a similar photo that we saw of the existing conditions with the existing mural that the developer intends to maintain, and same with the storefront that as discussed in the previous slide. You can move to the next slide, please. Here's a view from the intersection of Church Avenue and West 26th Street of the townhomes. You can see the extended tree lawn with the 3 introduced trees. Next slide will show a better view of the townhomes. A more specific view of the townhomes here of note is the full clad masonry that alludes to the rest of the historic materials in the neighborhood. The detailing is a contemporary take on the existing conditions of the neighborhoods for their detailings with the insets below the windows and the horizontal brick banding. And I also of note is the security gate where that car is coming out in the photo. Next slide. A more front-on view of those townhomes. You can go to the next slide. This shows the rear of the existing building, which has all those openings are existing openings, and we will be replacing those windows with the matching historic profiles. Next slide. So a view from Detroit and 26th. You can go to the next slide. So there's 2 slides here. This is the material palette for the existing historic building. From left to right here, the fiber cement paneling Nichihha product will be used at the stair penthouse for the rooftop patios of the existing building. The second image in is a photo of the existing paint on the existing historic building, and we are maintaining the paint and painting it over with the Red Barn Sherwin product. For the windows, we're going to be exploring aluminum and aluminum clad windows, aluminum clad wood windows with the historic profile to match. They'll be double hung. The lighting will have indirect and direct lighting along the parking area to the north of the existing building that'll be located at the commercial and residential doors. The upper light product is to light the parking area. The glass railing that we're proposing as the guardrail for the rooftop conditions. And then for the unit garage doors, a carriage style garage door with an upper level glazing that will be black in color. Go to the next slide, please. Here is the material palette for the townhomes, white brick masonry, an aluminum clad wood windows. Those will be casement and fixed depending on their locations, which can be referenced in the 2D elevations. The fiber cement panel product will be used at the stair overruns or stair penthouses for the roof patios. Similar indirect direct light fixture will be used as the existing building at the stoops and the rear where the garages are, and similar rooftop guardrail product for the glass guardrail, and for the garage doors, a contemporary style of the carriage style garage door with a white laminate glass infill and black trim. Next slide, please. Cut sheets for the light fixture products, and next sheet will take us to the end. Thank you.
Open to any questions, clarifications that you might need. We can go back through any part of the presentation.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Dan, to clarify, are we on schematic level design review?
No, the applicant wanted to come for final review.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
I have a clarifying window question.
Okay.
In the Nelson building palette, this aluminum clad wood window here, I think you've repeatedly said the phrase "your matching historic profile." Can you please clarify what the window program is, particularly for the upper sashes on the front building facade? It looked like that third story had basically half circle tops. So I want to clarify just because it's not called out in that slide that you provided us.
It is a, I think the rendering shows it more as a full arch, but I believe it's a kind of a soft arch. But in any case, the upper sash will follow that soft arc as it would have with the original historic windows. There's actually replacement windows up there right now that cut it off and create a solid eyebrow. We will not be doing that with the replacement windows. It'll be per the renderings.
Okay. So the second floor windows will have a flat arch. Sorry, just a flat top edge on the second story windows, and you're probably just going to trim out that kind of arch on the second floor, and then the third floor will be semicircular. Okay, just as it's shown in the renderings.
Yes, yes, and that was as required by SHPO as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Can you also clarify at what point this project is in the process with tax abatement or tax credits?
The part 1, part 2 submissions have been made. The initial review has been completed and comments received. And we've responded to all the comments and made a resubmission. And what you're seeing here today is representative of where we are in those conversations.
Okay, thanks. Can you speak to the use of like the brick fiber cement paneling?
Yes. Go back that last image you were at. Well, that'll work too. Back one. There you go. Stay right there. To the right and the rear, you see two elements that are projecting through the roof. One is the new elevator overrun, and the taller one is the new stair overrun. Just for structural reasons, we did not want to extend true brick up there, so that's where we're going to use the fiber cement Nichihop product and clad it and then paint it so it'll match the painted brick below. It'll be a good match.
And it's also going to be used on the garage extension, is that correct?
What's that?
It will also be used on the garage extension. at the rear of the historic building? Is that correct?
We were using brick veneer on the garage.
Oh, okay. It's labeled as the fiber cement in the drawings.
Yeah, the intent was that it was brick veneer.
Okay.
I had a question about the windows on the rear of the Nelson building at the third floor. Are you reinstating openings that had been bricked off or creating new or a combination?
No, basically the 8 openings that you're seeing there, 7 of them, well, all 8 were originally windows. I think most or all of them have been blocked up, so we're basically restoring the original masonry openings and putting in new windows to match. And then that one door, it'll carry the same kind of soft arched top, and the sill wall will be cut out enough to create a door opening, but it retains the width of the original masonry opening was in that location.
Okay. And then I would just ask that the paint product be specified to be a breathable masonry paint on the historic building.
Yes, absolutely.
I think my only item I'd like to discuss is this particular rendering actually on the townhomes, the north elevation here. It feels to me like it's very much a backside of the building, and I don't think it presents that way from the street in reality when it's built. I think the kind of asymmetry of the facade and the large field of kind of empty, call it masonry look, is a misstep, and I'm wondering if you guys would be amenable to revisiting kind of this elevation, or at least kind of proposing a different means to bring this into a more symmetrical, ordered appearance that references the existing building and also some of the neighborhood context a little better.
I'm pausing because I'm not sure how to respond to that. We recognize that this elevation is secondary to the West 26th Street elevation, and that it is has a lot of exposure by virtue of the parking lot that is immediately adjacent. There are program considerations inside the building that led to the fenestration pattern that we proposed. Where you see to the right the stacked 3 windows that works in all 3 spaces up through the building. While we could have added additional 2 windows above the next one to the left, it basically programmatically challenged the functionality of the rooms inside. Don't disagree that 2 more windows might look better, but it was a balance of what's happening inside, what's happening outside, and we felt that this was appropriate. Now, whether we go back and maybe take the treatment, I mean, this initial reaction to your comment, that might be something that just had a little visual interest, is if you look at the slide, it's a little bit more frontal. We had that treatment of a brick pulled out slightly, horizontal banding above the entrances to the units. Perhaps we take a treatment like that and put it on the first floor, just to create a kind of base to the building. I think that would be a nice way to elevate that facade with a little bit more detail, if you were amenable to that.
Yeah, I think I personally would be fine with it. Just something to pull back a little bit of the discordant rhythm of the Windows fenestration would work for me. I don't know how the others feel.
I would chime in Denver. Obviously, we're not our purview is not the interior, but looking at that corner unit and that back bedroom with the closets on the outboard wall, I think it could also really benefit the plan and the like head wall of the bed from a planning perspective if you just flipped them and gave 2 windows on that side potentially and had the closet on the entry wall of the bedroom. Again, just 2 cents of, maybe there's a really quick and it opens up that wall for more options. On that one level, I should say. I don't know if that solves anything for you, but it comes to mind.
It's not quite all of that, and I am having trouble hearing you. You're a little quiet.
Oh, am I quiet? Here, hold on. Let me take these out. Maybe my AirPods were to blame. That when we're looking at the plan top right bedroom, you have the closets on the exterior wall. If you were to just mirror that closet to be on the entry wall, you could open up some wall space, which doesn't fully solve the issue, but it seems
Right.
like a low stakes change that could give a little bit more fenestration.
Yeah, and assuming the headboard could be on the east, if it'll fit there. Yeah.
And I could like appreciate the secondary nature of this facade. I think if you were going fully in that direction, it'd almost be more beneficial from a historic context standpoint to have no finished, nothing on that wall and have it be brick like a historic building would have. But it's not really like when you, especially the rendering where it pulls back and you can see it from Detroit. I think the next one, I think that's compelling to have a little bit more attention to that facade, which I would agree with Chris. So
Okay. I think we can commit to adding a window to the 3rd floor bedroom and to adding the rusticated brick treatment banding on the 1st floor. Both of those things, I think, are things we can do and will elevate this elevation. It'll add to it.
mm-hmm. Thank you. Overall, I think the townhouse design is attractive. I appreciate the kind of use of the historic material in a more modern way. And I think it does hit the criteria in terms of new construction in that sense. On top of, in my personal opinion, just being an attractive proposal. I am curious, like, is the townhome portion, because one of my thoughts in terms of context of this exact site, and I apologize if you can hear background noise because my neighbors are being loud, that this would not be an apartment building rather than townhomes, be simple townhomes. And I know that there's a lot of nuance and maybe the question of if that's part of Landmark's purview to comment on the use of the site, but if we think of it in the context of this exact site, multi-level apartment buildings would probably be more contextual. So I'm curious if you can, is that just a financing thing? Is that, where did that idea get born from? Is this just the developer's choice or something that was considered?
Well, the development team considered a number of options for this. And again, given the parcel is relatively narrow and the existing 1-story section of the historic building is amalgamation of additions on additions, didn't have any historic value and wasn't good for adaptive reuse. We said, okay, we're restoring the main building. What else do we do with the rest of this property to add some value? It's not particularly large enough for a very large apartment building. So if you start thinking about management of a small apartment building, it's a little tricky. And 3 for sale townhomes. While this immediate block may not have any, there are certainly single family residences nearby. And the intention with the 2 apartments in the historic building, those of you familiar with the tax credit process, projects cannot receive tax credits if they're for sale product. So initially these will be for rent and purposely called apartments, but they're going to be designed very much as high-end luxury condominiums. And at some point they may actually be for sale. So then if you think about this lot as really ultimately 5 luxury residences and some kind of small boutique commercial element on the first floor of the historic building.
Madam
Do you
Chair.
have a staff report for this project, if we could get that out?
Sorry, I can't, what? I
Do
cannot
we have a
hear.
staff report for this project?
Yes, please, Jessica.
Thank you. So this project is also being reviewed by the Planning Commission for conditional use requests. I think they're going tomorrow. Planning has concerns with the conditional use request due to the parking within the first 40 feet because it is in a PRO. And so it, from their perspective, doesn't meet the criteria outlined in the code, and they would love to see that space activated in another way. The project is also reviewed through the PETBOT, which is currently an internal review with the different like fire and traffic and engineering and RTA and everybody else. So from the PETBOT review, which was on Tuesday, it was noted that there are planters in the right of way, and so that will need special permitting for that for streetscape permits. And it also, the site also has limited fire access, and so the applicants will need to review the fire code to make sure that there is access for all the buildings and a proper turning radius for the trucks. And so that's from the city side. And then Mr. Frondorf emailed that he was not able to make the meeting, but he did send some comments for the project. And he said regarding the new townhomes that he did have support for those and would ask that more attention be given to the shade trees on the West 25th side and if possible on the West 26th side. And he thought the design was appropriate, but that the white brick was out of place and a more historic brick color would be better if it was selected.
Thanks, Jessica. Hearing that, I'm like, I'll let the other parties at the table for you guys kind of do their jobs with that. While I do think that what you've presented is really agreeable and attractive, and appropriate, it's more like grappling with that. The highest and best use of this site to me still feels like we could get more density, at this particular location, though. Sounds like you'll have some other, steps to your process that could, we'll discuss that and address that.
Any other questions or comments?
I don't have too much to contribute that hasn't been stated already. I do agree with Chris's point about that facade, especially from Detroit, needing a bit of work. And I think that kind of brings back to this higher point of the fact that this is a commercial district and we're putting townhomes there. And so that's why we're seeing the challenge, I think, of that facade having that asymmetry where so many commercial buildings have just have more symmetry there. I understand that this area does typically get more density, but I really actually like that we are adding a type of housing that doesn't currently exist. So I do like a variety of housing additions in the neighborhood instead of just getting apartments. So I might be in disagreement about the use of that, and I do appreciate that the height of the townhomes does not dwarf the height of the historic structure. And I don't know if that, I mean, I know that that's something that we have to consider here with the Secretary of Interior standards, and I assume that that's something that has to be considered with getting historic tax credits as well.
Yes.
I do have concern, I think, and I think that this is coming up with the Planning Commission about the exposure of the parking lot and just the use of the parking lot on West 25th. I don't know if there's, that is something that I don't know what kind of solution, because it is such a narrow space and locked between the buildings. I don't know if better screening would be more successful or not, but that's something that I definitely can understand the concern. So those were just my thoughts. So I think that I'm in agreement with some points, but I also am I appreciate I like the white brick too. I do want to say that. And I appreciate the diversity of housing solutions that are being proposed as well.
Okay. Just to respond to the parking lot, give a little background on this. The parking lot is an existing condition. Currently, there's a chain link fence along that edge, no screening. And as a development team looked at this project and how they might basically restore the historic building and add some value to the site, we did evaluate building an addition to this building, building more volume, but then the project just gets more complex in terms of, okay, what is that use? Is it viable? And then how do you park it after you do it? And ultimately they said, let's do a first class historic restoration of the building, maintain the parking, which is a value proposition for the tenants and owners, and that retail tenant on the first floor for employee parking. And then we said, okay, if the parking lot exists, how can we make it as sensitive as we can to the pedestrian retail overlay district? So our solution, if we go back to the rendering, is we pushed back the parking lot 5 feet from the right-of-way line, added a dense evergreen and some base deciduous material along it, and took an existing condition and made it an attractive piece of the streetscape. And we think that that's an appropriate solution, vast improvement to what's there. And by not developing this 36-foot wide swatch, it gave us the opportunity to put the windows in the north side of the building and bring value to those residential units. So that's kind of the background of where we are. And as was discussed, there are a couple of things, conditional use required that's under the purview of the Planning Commission. And one of them is parking within 40 feet of the street that's under the PRO, which in this case is an existing condition. It's not one that we can really change short of building something here, or and that there's a side yard. And again, the side yard is an existing condition, and we've improved it.
Denver, as you were talking, and I totally understand and respect all of the background that you gave on the parking lot. I wonder if it would be an interesting compromise if instead of the screening, there was a very slender sort of pocket park here. And if that could be something that the Planning Commission, you know, even if it doesn't give you the amount of feet between the PRO and the parking lot that's required, because I do, you know, parking is going to become increasingly precious. in this area, and so I understand the desire to keep it for the tenants and employees. But maybe something that feels activated like a pocket park. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. I think simple is often just as good. But a couple of trees and benches and just something that people could interact with could be a nice compromise in this space. And given the depth that you have there with the planters and the screening, I wonder if it wouldn't be just a few more feet that would allow you to do that.
We also had that conversation because there was an earlier iteration where we had included some street furniture, but ultimately we thought that this was the most appropriate solution, considering that in this context, right across the street, we'll have the new Irishtown Bend Park, so a large park element, and maybe we can't commit to what the ground floor tenant is going to be, but if it were some kind of small coffee shop or lunch spot or sandwich spot, there's opportunity that maybe there's some outdoor cafe seating at that time on this very large right-of-way sidewalk.
Denver, that
Where's-
was my thought is sorry, Chris, if you
Fine.
pushed that screening just back and look at the site plan, it looks like there's not a parking space on the,
Right.
you know, I don't know, northwesternmost space. Just push that screening back 8, 9, 10 feet and keep it fenced. But then when that amenity space, if it is a retail tenant with amenity space, then it's got its own little spot right there, which would be incredibly valuable. And would also kind of two birds, one stone, pull back the parking edge and give a tenant the option for exterior space.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask how this retail space is serviced, where the back of house space is, if you have any dumpsters on site, where those go. Because it looks like you've got two, call it public facing access to the retail. One would be that east on 25th, and then one would be that northeast door that kind of is in the area of what we're discussing here. So obviously this is early, you don't have a TI package or anything set up, but do you see that northeast door as being a public facing door, or is that behind controlled access for just
That's
for
behind
parking?
controlled access. So
Okay.
there's a gate in the fence, pedestrian gate that's also secure. And then the door out of the tenant space is in that kind of secure parking zone. And
that's-
that would be
That's existing opening, right?
the door. No, it is not an existing opening.
Okay.
It aligns with one of the new window openings above.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to back up. One, if we were to extend the park or the landscape buffer or whatever we want to call it deeper into the lot to the west, we also make it more difficult to utilize the first parking space and getting in and out of it. And the second thing is that this sidewalk is extraordinarily wide. And the intent, to the extent that a ground floor tenant has outdoor needs, and it may not, it may be a small professional services company. The sidewalk with the appropriate permits would provide a fairly expansive outdoor opportunity. And to create that space and then not have a ground floor tenant that is actually going to use it for that purpose, then we diminish the landscape solution. And right now we think that the landscape solution we provided is a year-round, simple, and elegant backdrop to everything else that's happening.
I had a question about so this is all one parcel.
Yes, it's currently one parcel.
So, and there was a decision to not build an adjacent building where this parking is planned right here.
That's correct.
In the future, if you make these townhomes fee simple, is the plan to go to planning commission to get lot splits for all this?
Yeah, ultimately there would be a lot split for the townhomes, and then there would be a shared access
There'd be an easement.
easement
Okay.
associated with car vehicular movement.
With this plan as it is, does this plan kind of preserve the opportunity to potentially in the future, if economics conditions change, to build another building on this parking, if parking could be provided somewhere else? I know you added windows to that north face, but maybe some of my architecture colleagues can say whether it's insurmountable for us to build a building there in the future.
I'm not going to say that it's impossible, but based on the intended use of the upper two floors, fairly unlikely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think Angelo, kind of generally, it's always dangerous to design something, with the intent that it'll eventually, possibly, maybe, sort of, there be a next phase, right? You want to do it as if it works right now for forever.
Sure.
And if you think back to the previous proposals for this site, none of them have gone through. Many of them were quite ambitious. And this one, the development team is committed to and can execute.
Yeah, I think I can definitely appreciate that. I'm going to play devil's advocate and say maybe some of these parking headaches are a problem of your own making by adding the 4 garage bay at the back of the building and potentially, and I can appreciate that the for sale condo conversion down the line, those are really valuable for that. But for the proposal as it stands, it could benefit from revisiting the size and scale of that portion, and or you're eating up a lot of ground floor space that could potentially be solving some of these issues by, eliminating that and rotating your parking to be more interior between the two structures.
Not quite following that, but
Can you go to the first floor plan or the site plan, Dan? So my understanding is that you're creating a new single-story garage with 4 bays, 2 bays, 4 spots, right?
that's correct.
So if you were to not build that, and I get that it, again, programmatically supports the eventual for sale conversion of those apartments. Can appreciate that. Get it from a pro forma standpoint. You could potentially address some of this parking and literal pinch point problems that have been outlined by reutilizing that space as parking or open parking, not enclosed, fire rated deeded parking, eventually.
Just to clarify, the intention with each residential unit, the townhomes and the 2 initially apartments, given their size, desire was, in terms of particularly this market and the size of the units, that you need 2 spaces for each. And those garages are not super generous in size, so even if you weren't to build the garage addition on the historic building, that would still only yield 4 spaces. So essentially we have 5 residences. Each of them have 2 spaces. They happen to be covered. If they weren't, still take the same amount of spaces. And then the additional 7 gives some flexibility with employees for the commercial space and a few visitors for the residences. So it's not excessive parking at all. It's fairly modest. Initially, the development team was concerned because, in this neighborhood, parking is a bit of a premium, and they were concerned that we weren't yet small. So we expect this to be neighborhood use. There's no customer parking provided for the ground floor tenant.
No, I totally get it. And I do not think that these are excessive sizes by any stretch. More just that if you're not locking in a this L-shaped layout with two built forms, and that's surface lots or surface parking, that could be, you could look at the layout a little bit differently and or address some of these potential issues that we're bringing up and that it seems like a lot of other parties have brought up in terms of access and flow through the site.
Can staff repeat when this is going to planning commission?
It is scheduled for tomorrow's planning commission meeting, I believe.
Okay. My thought is generally overall on this project, I'm generally supportive of it. I agree with the staff comments about the planters in the right of way. Although this is a wide stretch of sidewalk, we're about to rip up West 25th for BRT and all those improvements. So that just feels like we shouldn't really plan too much for the right of way. This plan, this proposal, it doesn't seem fully baked, but it seems pretty complete. And I think me just personally kind of broadcasting to my colleagues here, I would probably vote to support this. So I guess just for the sake, and feel free for other members to do whatever you want to do to change things, but I am going to make a motion to recommend approval as presented. But I could also see this application getting tabled, waiting for planning commission. Yeah, fire is going to say they always have access problems no matter what, so I always kind of hedge what fire says. But if planning commission says no, this isn't going to work, we're not going to allow this or that, then that feels like your project scope would change. But I just wanted to put that out there in case it's helpful for moving this application along.
And if it's
Do we-
possible to add
do we
to
have
that,
this?
it would be.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I was hoping to add a condition, and I would ask Chris to form the language about potentially changing the facade from what you see on Detroit because it is so exposed. And I wanted to add a consideration that a consideration to consider a pocket park there that would be accessible to pedestrians to respect the PRO.
So Dan, do we need to make a new motion, discuss it a little bit more? Because a motion's been initiated, how does this work?
Yeah, since there's a motion on the table, I guess you could propose language you wanted to, well, I guess, Whitney, did you second the motion?
I didn't know.
Okay, so that wasn't a second. All right. So we need, before we start changing the motion, we do have a motion on the table that we need to second. And then Angelo can adjust his motion based on the discussion if someone wants to propose language like Whitney just did, or however that works. But we do need to see if this has a second before we can change it.
I can second.
Can we? Okay. I was going to say, can we just do a clean motion, recommend approval as presented? Feel free. No one has to second it. Feel free to let this motion die.
Well,
Whitney, if you want to reconsider,
Okay.
because we could let my motion die, and then we could do a new motion where we start tweaking other things like Pocket Park and north side of townhomes.
You're just trying to make me write a bunch, aren't you?
Sorry.
Can I add to this? Even though I am poking at this quite a bit, or it feels like I am also generally supportive. For me, the poking comes from because to me, it does not feel fully baked yet. And I just don't necessarily feel comfortable with final approval, given a lot of these kinds of points and all the other parties at play that you're going to be talking to, it sounds like, in the very near future. So my personal preference, it would be to table. And I would struggle with a motion to approve for that reason. Not, again, because I'm not generally in support of, I am. More just that I think that there's some big question marks that need to be answered before we issue final. And that's my 2 cents.
To that point, I just time frame wise, I did want to point out, if it's going to planning commission tomorrow, it won't, the soonest it can go to landmarks commission is next week. So we should have answers on Planning Commission and some of those questions before it gets to Landmarks Commission. But, you know, that's not coming back to you guys, but that's still not a final approval from, you know, the body we're all representing until after we get some of those answers. So I don't know if that.
That's fair, Dan. I mean, yeah, we can kick it. We can kick it to landmarks.
I think
I will leave it up to you guys. I'm not.
I think I had one last question too before I say yay or nay. And it's how is trash being managed on this site?
You say, was that a question?
Yes,
How's the trash being?
There's two components to the trash. The 3 townhomes are single-family residences that will receive Cleveland public trash pickup. Trash containers will be stored in the garages of the townhomes and then brought out to the street on West 26th, where they'll be picked up on trash day like any other single-family home. In the mixed-use building, as it is, with the commercial ground floor and the 2 apartments above, that is not eligible for public trash pickup, so it will have to be private. And currently, the intent is that the trash containers for the residences will be stored in the garages, much as they are in the townhomes, and that the commercial tenant will also store the trash within the tenant space as part of their tenant fit out. And then there'll be a commercial trash pickup arrangement for those 2 residences and commercial retail. The details of that have not been finalized with a commercial
Sure.
trash.
Okay. So no exterior dumpster. Okay. All right. With that, I just want to amend or ask that the motion be amended, that additional details and fenestration be added to the north elevation of the townhomes such that they better contribute to the overall composition of that building, and that consideration be made to the West 25th screen for a better public-facing amenity pocket park experience.
Angelo, is that
That's
something you
fine.
want
I think.
to add into your motion?
Sure,
Or-
I think there's support for it.
And Ms. Anderson, do you support that as a second?
I do, yes.
All right. Does anyone have any other discussion? Guess hearing none, move on with the vote. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Flaherty,
Yes.
Ms. Land,
Yes.
Mr. Persons,
Yes.
Mr. Trevisano,
Yes.
and Ms. Marinucci.
Yes,
All right, Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
great.
Um,
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. And
Thank you very much. Just one quick follow-up question. For these conditions, how are those reviewed through landmarks on an administrative basis?
so those are essentially their recommendations. So those will, if you choose to make changes before you go to the Landmarks Commission, you can, you know, make those changes and then present those to the Landmarks Commission, or the motion and the recommendations from this committee will be passed on to the Landmarks Commission. So they may, you know, ultimately say the same thing. And at that point, you'd probably have to, you know, if they gave you an approval, you'd have to submit that in, you know, those drawings to staff for approval, unless the commission wanted to see it again themselves before they gave that approval.
Okay.
And
Thank you
the
very
north
much.
elevation was a condition, the pocket park's a consideration.
Yep.
Because the pocket park is, there's all the layers of the other approvals and et cetera.
Yep.
All right. I appreciate the clarification and committee's time here this morning. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And it looks like, I believe our first applicant today was having some trouble getting joining our meeting earlier, but they, I believe, have joined by phone now. Tom, are you there?
Hello?
Hello? Is it? Okay,
This
it
is,
looks like, yeah, we have Tom and Cindy.
yes. Can you hear
Um,
me?
yes, we have
Okay,
your presentation up if you want to just
okay, yeah,
go through it. Let me know when you want me to change slides or.
okay. So, so I'm here with Mr. Wintering. And we decided on, I mean, well, we didn't decide, but we said that we would like to compromise on one other thing. As far as you guys said that we can do the back and the east wall, I think it was, and then you wanted us to paint and scrape the left-hand side and the front of the house. So what we were going to ask is if you would take it up to where the gutter on the upper part of the house, if we can do all three sides and stop it right there where we could put a channel and then paint the green, of course, all the walls on the front of the house and that one side where it attaches right past the down, where the downspout is, that would all be painted.
Yeah, and I guess just a little background on this for the chair and the committee. I met with the applicant and the Samato out on site after the first meeting. Then after this past meeting, the homeowner and I talked, and I guess hearing some resistance to siding even this north elevation, since there is a bit of space. It's not like, you know, a full lot between this house and the one to the north, but it is a wider space than usually kind of like a two driveway width. So I recommended that, you know, they find a point like, you know, this where there's a piece of naturally occurring trim and then a downspout on the second floor, and those doesn't look like in the image, but they kind of line up on the same plane. And they kind of commit to keeping everything, you know, original, or doing, you know, proper restoration of everything in front of that, and then, you know, siding would be more appropriate behind that line. Because really visually, if you're heading south on 31st Street, then you wouldn't, you know, it would look for all intents and purposes like a wood sided house. You'd see the clapboard and you wouldn't really notice the vinyl because it would be set far enough back. But that was the discussion staff had. And otherwise, I guess Cindy, Tom, are you guys so not proposing the
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
no treatment in the gable at this point, just so it's just this
Well,
the
we would,
seagrass?
as far as the seagrass on a, oh, you mean to do it a different color? No, we would keep everything just the two colors. It would either be the herringbone, all the herringbone trim and the seagrass as far as the walls go. And then as far as the trim on the complete house, that would still be the coil. We would form all the coil to match exactly how it is existing. It would look like it's painted, but it would be coil. And there are no soffits on that house. They're just gutter boxes, so that would just be in the herringbone. So we would scrape, paint, pressure wash the complete front of the house. And from looking at the house, going down the street, that one whole side, as long as it goes past that gutter point, the downspout, I mean. But it would all blend right in.
Thank you. Any discussion from my colleagues or comments?
Herringbone's a color,
Yes,
It is, yes.
yeah.
and
It's
that's
kind of
what's
like an
shown, I think,
off-white.
on.
It's
Yeah,
like
it's like a
it's
cream.
like a, yeah, it's
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
off, it's not stark white, it's more of an off-white.
And there's no
Heather?
more changes being proposed to the front gable at this time?
No, we were gonna just paint it, except for the trim, of course, would be the herringbone. The walls were gonna be exactly the same as the rest of the walls. Everything's gonna be two colors, the herringbone and the walls
Seagrass.
would be the seagrass.
I apologize too, because I did miss your last proposal. So these questions might be repetitive to that. One is that, Dan, did you guys see did you meet on site landmarks?
Yes.
Can you, I'm still, I guess, does the condition warrant recovering in the proposed areas of recovering, in your opinion?
I mean, I've certainly seen worse siding. It could I mean, I think a lot of it could probably still hold paint with, like proper scraping painting. I wouldn't recommend pressure washing that just sort of pushes water into the fibers, but I mean, it'd be a good amount of elbow grease, but certainly this south elevation here that's sandwiched between two buildings, I don't think anyone would notice if it was, sided, restored, or, covered in an insul brick. It's just not visible at all. And yeah, condition wise, I think the siding, most of it is salvageable. I'm sure you'd have to replace a few pieces. Some of it would definitely need some Bondo and wood hardener. It would be a job. And that's why, I guess, staff feels that sort of that front elevation and returning on the north elevation back to this point. I mean, you've probably got, 15 feet of house from this point forward. So visually from the street, as far as, fitting with the historic district, it would look like a, wood-sided house, and then just sort of the back portion on the sides and the rear would be vinyl sided. So
And when we say like this point, like this photo in front of us that says left side, that line right there, and can you clarify where that translates above that gutter line?
it goes to the downspout here. These kind of line up.
Yes, that's
These
what I meant.
two lines.
Gutter.
Yeah.
And then that side facing gable would also be vinyl, correct?
This up here.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
And is it still a rough cedar texture that's being proposed?
yes. It looks like wood.
Correct. Our preference would be smooth. Is that an option?
It would, I mean, I would have to order it and it would cost a lot more money. 'Cause
And
you have to go into a,
Is-
that's up to the homeowner because, I mean, I could order it, but it's a whole nother, it's
Is-
something that he has to, want to purchase.
Is the impetus for this, Cindy, that you're not capable of restoring this facade?
What do you mean? With paint?
Correct.
Well, we usually don't paint. I mean, that's what we do. We do siding and.
So
we
are
do
you
the
a
trim.
are you a siding contractor?
Yes,
Are you a vinyl siding? So that's where this
Yes.
is kind of coming from, is that that's only what you do.
yes, but I do windows and,
Understood.
We
And Tom, are you the owner?
Yes.
I will put it bluntly that there are lots of contractors that could restore this facade for you.
Yeah. So I spent a couple months actually finding or talking to different contractors, and one of the reasons I went with Cindy is, of those contractors, just to put it really bluntly, I don't have the money that that many were demanding, and that was
Totally.
for
Yeah,
was for
that's
any-
understandable.
yeah, and Cindy was I think really we had some really, really good discussions around like making sure that it fit the aesthetic of the street. I didn't totally understand. I said this last time. I grew up in the suburbs, so my familiarity with historic districts was 0. And the previous seller actually specifically said that this was not in a historic district, and I, having no background, didn't think to ask otherwise. And
I'm
so yeah, but Cindy and
sorry
I.
for that. Yeah, I'm
Oh
sorry
yeah,
that you had
yeah,
that experience. You know,
yeah.
I'm a restoration architect, so I'm going to give you my, you know, if you were having me, this is like your, you know, free consult with me, is that yes, it's costly. Are there immediate issues within this home that need to
Yes.
be addressed by this facade?
Yes. Yes. There are multiple spaces in the back and on the side you can't see that there's missing cedar, and there's also a few spots where the cedar, at least from talking to a couple contractors that did specifically work with this, where they said that it wasn't salvageable.
Okay. I would say I would be comfortable with the product on, oh gosh, I mean, I'm kind of disoriented, so I'm not sure which side. On the rear and the side that's obviously up right up against your neighbor. I still am really hesitant, especially if it's a wood grain texture, to approve that siding up to that line on this left side as it's labeled in the drawings. And I hate to be hard on it, but it's also really difficult when a contractor who only does one thing comes in front of us because they have, and I don't mean this in a malicious way whatsoever, but they have they're familiar with one product and they're pushing that product when there are other options.
Well, no,
So
I could do other, I mean, there's other products that I sell, but on this particular home, I mean, he could have smooth siding if he wants. I mean, I could get that. I could definitely get that.
And I guess what Cindy's saying is like it's not that she can't do their siding. It's that we again not recognizing that this was that the historic review board was a body that we needed to work with. We chose the wood grain thinking that it was a better match for the street and for the aesthetics of the street, and that's already been ordered. And so going back to my earlier point about the financial element of this, I am trying to mitigate the additional costs, recognizing this has already become quite an expensive endeavor. And just like really candidly, like the quotes that I was getting from other contractors were above $70,000,
God.
which is
for
like
for restoring, like for scraping and painting.
No, actually, for scraping, painting, and replacing the areas where the wood was unsalvageable, that was north of $80,000, and that was multiple contractors. For vinyl siding, the most expensive that I got was $65,000. And the least expensive, which was a person that I chose not to go with because they were not as knowledgeable, or I would say trusted as Cindy is, was still in the 20s. So that's where I'm kind of at now. I mean, like if you're asking me to spend a third of the value of the house on residing it, I'm going to tell you, no, thank you.
No, I very
yeah.
much, I totally sympathize with that.
Yeah.
I just wish you were armed with the appropriate information from the start because it would have guided
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And I can appreciate that we're here now. My other really big hesitation is the coil on the original or near original detailing on that front facing gable and the porch work. I've yet to see coil look like an accurate profile. And maybe I'm just being narrow-minded on that. I would love to hear my colleagues' opinions on that, on wrapping all of the existing trim work with coil.
Well, we weren't
So,
going to wrap anything on the front porch. We were just doing the window casings and the door casing.
And what about, even then I would hesitate because the marrying of those two materials to the old cladding or I just struggle with that. I don't find that to be an elegant application or a proper application of it, but I'm talking more about the crown detailing in that front-facing gable. Yep,
Okay, so what if we didn't? So you're talking about on the very top part?
correct.
So you're saying not to cover that?
I mean, you said you would be covering that in the coil, correct?
I could cover that in the coil, yes.
No, she's
I'm not
saying she
asking
doesn't
if you
want it.
can,
She
I'm
doesn't
asking if
want
you're
it.
proposing that.
Oh, yes, we were going to do that. And we have a break that could make it so that it's not going to be flat. It would be, we put bends in the break, just like how the wood goes.
Sure, you stated that you would be able to replicate that profile with the
Right.
coil. Is
Yeah.
that a true statement?
Yes.
Can you provide us profiles of that coil or photos of that application?
Well, I would have to have my guy make a piece of it.
And that's the plan.
I mean, he can.
Well,
I think maybe
can do a
one
lot of
solution
things
here,
here.
maybe one solution if we're going to accept some of this coil stock is for you to get the roll break out and the profiles that are on this house on the trims, have your guy break it and include that and say, okay, you can match the profiles that are on these casings, and have that side by side with the existing wood. That's one way to say, okay, you can match the Craftsman style or of the casings, and you can match the 3 or 4 breaks that are going to be needed on all these rake boards, et cetera, that are on the house that you're proposing to replace. I don't know, Nia, if that's something that you think would work.
I think so. I don't know. Margaret, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, because I was on the meeting 2 weeks ago and after the discussion 2 weeks ago and seeing the new proposal again today, I was actually going to suggest what Dan suggested in terms of applying the siding beyond that downspout and
Mhm.
break there on the side, but ask for no coil wrap where all the paint is being done as a compromise. So
Yeah.
Approving the siding and the coil wrap application on the back, the side you can't see, and beyond the gutter on the side that
Maintaining,
can, but then
restoring.
maintaining 100% of the wood on the front and that little bit of the side.
You'd have to have that painted.
Just
And
would
having
you-
it painted.
Right, so they would paint the trim too. So you're saying to paint the front and the trim, all the window treatments, right? On the front of the house and the whole side,
Not the whole side, just to the downspout.
just
Just
to
to
the
the
downspout.
downspout.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yes,
So
it is.
only introducing alternate materials beyond the
In that line.
downspout, the back,
okay.
and the side. you
Margaret,
can't see.
I think that's a totally reasonable,
Yes.
request.
I agree.
Speaking for myself.
I agree that if we're maintaining that and restoring that material from that line forward, I could, and given all the factors, and obviously not wanting to be punitive to, a homeowner and a neighbor, that, all the factors, I could be supportive of that.
Okay. No, I'm comfortable with that, and I mean also like I was planning on for the front porch rehabbing all the wood. So I think that just keeping to your point, Nia, all of the similar materials that sounds very reasonable.
And I think when you go through this process, knowing where you're going to have this, call it metal casing now, before that gets installed, having the contractor do call it a mock-up of what these trim profiles are going to look like, and comparing that to the wood that's on that window before the wood gets taken off the window, and making sure that you as the homeowner are comfortable with what that looks like, that is a match, because it's going to be up there a very long time, and you want to make sure that that looks like the other windows that are going to be the wood that stays.
Yeah.
So that you don't have kind of an apples and oranges appearance to your house.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jessica, you had something to share? You've had your hand up for a bit. Sorry to jump in.
Yeah, so just relaying for the staff report that we do have comments from Mr. Frondorf because he wasn't able to make the meeting. And from his comments, they are unchanged from the last meeting, and he said that he could compromise on the vinyl on the rear and south facades, but not on the front or north wall. Thanks.
Well, I also think it's noted that the presentation doesn't reflect the,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the changes. So that's, you know, he may have had a different opinion if he'd been here. Although maybe not, knowing Alex. So okay, so can we get a motion on the table?
Can we just clarify where we're at right now? It's tough to have the discussion and keep looking at this presentation and remember
Yeah.
what we're
Yeah.
doing.
So Angela, I think
So-
what we agreed to was in front of the in front of the downspout, on the front and side of the house would be restored using all existing materials, repainted to match the rest of the house, which will be in the herringbone for the trim in the back and the side, as well as then the vinyl siding on the back and the side.
And there will be scraping and repainting of the porch components. And so basically the window casings, the trim along the gable and along the porch, that will be painted. That will be
Yes.
painted wood.
Yes, yeah. The front porch, as an aside, so the front pillars and the railing, that I'm going to need to address separately because there are some other factors. So we're just right now, I think, talking about the main portion of the house, not the porch. So the porch does have more rotting wood that needs to be addressed, I think, in a separate way.
I think it's understandable that you're going to be biting pieces off of this for a bit. So
Yes.
And I had one more thing to recommend when it does come to the washing, a low, like hose, pressure wash to clean it. But I wouldn't pressure wash at any kind of higher pressure, even where you're going to be covering with the siding, because that siding can retain that moisture longer than you might think that would. And then if you encapsulate it in with the vinyl, you could cause yourself worse problems down the road. So I would just recommend a very low pressure wash to clean.
Yeah, good point. And it's
Yeah,
at
really,
this point, it's so old, it can be held together by habit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're
Yeah,
just washing
that's also
the
true.
dust off after you scrape it, really.
Okay,
Right.
that's helpful.
I ask a logistical question of Dan. Is there a process, and I think I've seen this before, so apologies if I'm kind of making it up. Is there a process for showing economic hardship in terms of, you know, I know restoration has been recommended by staff, and you said that full replacement wouldn't be required. Is there a process to show that the applicant has economic hardship and can't fulfill that recommendation?
So it's not like a hard and fast number, like, 40% AMI or something like that. Like it's really case by case, and in those cases, usually we say, provide us some estimates of what it would cost to do what we're asking, and then the committee and the commission sort of balance, like, is that a reasonable cost to expect someone to incur? And that's where it weighs in. Is this an owner occupant? Are they buying this as an investment and flipping it? Like that kind of thing all factors in. But it's not like a hard and fast formula that we have. It's more of a case by case judgment call for every case by each committee and commission.
Okay. Tom, is this going to be your primary home?
It is, yes.
I do appreciate that. I'm struggling with this a bit just because I do think that the transition from vinyl to the restored siding will be noticeable. And what it kind of does throughout the neighborhood is, I mean, I think they're very obvious whenever there is homes with vinyl sidings throughout. And what we've seen in presentations here is that applicants come here and point to other homes with vinyl siding as a reason to apply it to their home. So just given the Secretary of Interior standards and to be consistent, I really struggle with, I think what's being proposed, but I may be outnumbered in my opinion there.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I will move to approve with the condition that the vinyl and trim coil is limited to behind the principal elevation limits of the downspout, and that everything proud of that or front facing of that is restricted to restoration of the existing wood facade elements.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Being none, go ahead with a vote. Ms. Anderson?
No.
Ms. Flaherty had to step away. Ms. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Persons?
Yes.
Mr. Trevisano?
Yes.
And Ms. Marinucci?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes by a vote of 4-1. Sorry, yeah, Tom, Cindy, I will follow up with you guys probably later today or early tomorrow.
Beautiful. And
Thank
thank you
you.
all. I
Thank you.
appreciate the guidance and the support. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in the neighborhood.
Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, Madam Chair, that is all of our certificates of appropriateness applications for today. So our next meeting is June 5th, 2025, unless you had anything.
No, do you guys have anything else? Okay,
Nope.
then
right.
we will call today's Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
One day I'll
Bye,
get it
buddy.
right. Bye.
Then we'll change it again.
Bye.